In this lesson, I want to start talking just about the liquefying tool. So, liquefying tool can be a really good friend, or you can hate it completely. It can be confusing, but it can also be very easy if you know what you're doing. So, right away, let's also have a look here. We've got layer number 1. I'm just going to make a duplicate with this. So, let's drag this onto the new layer icon, make the duplicate. I'm quickly going to rename this to version 2. Okay, great. And right away now, I will also take this into the liquefy tool. So let's go up here to filter and we'll go to liquefy. So select liquefy. Right away, a new window will pop up. And let's actually make this nice and big. And we've got our new window. Now, for the left-hand side, you'll see we also have again a toolbar. On the right-hand side, we have a few options. And in the middle, we have our picture. And at the bottom here, you kind of have like a little bit of a zoom function. So you can also press Command 0, so it will fit right nicely on your screen again, and you can also work with that. So let's start right away with the first one, which is just the normal warp tool. Also, which I didn't mention right away, is we haven't selected the advanced mode here. So if you trust yourself and if you're interested, select the advanced mode right away from the beginning and work like that. But if you're completely new to this and a bit scared, then don't do that. But if not, like then just go to the advanced mode. So right away, you also get to see a few more options. Let's actually start on the left-hand side. So first of all, we have the warp tool, just a normal push around, pushing the pixels and warping areas. Then again, the reconstruction tool, you can just simply brush over things to reconstruct. Underneath that, to smoothen transitions, here you have a bit of a twirl. Then again, to pucker, it's actually like a suction thing. And extraction, floating tool, then as well push to left, and also a freeze mask and erase mask again. And then also the hand tool to move around and our typical zoom tool. Great, let's also cover a bit the stuff here on the right hand side. So again, first of all, we have load mash, load last mash, and save mash. That's basically meaning you can adjust something here, save this, and then come back again in Photoshop and just say load mash, and right away you have your same adjustments. Especially if you have a ton of the same images, you can use this. Or afterwards, I'll show you guys another technique. Sometimes Photoshop, it always crashes with the liquefying tool. If you put in liquefy, some computers can't handle it from the RAM and they immediately crash. So I have another technique which you can apply here, which you can add later to your big images. But more about that later in the lesson. Then underneath that, we have the brush tool options. Again, the size to change our brush. Currently, you see the brush is quite big. Again, I'm working with the Wacom Intuos 5 Pro tablet, so on my tablet here, I can change my brush pretty quickly. You can also use, again, the keyboard shortcuts with opening and closing bracket on the keyboard. Or over here, change just the size over here. Great. Then as well, density, how strong this works, the pressure, how strong as well. Rate, we will not work with that. Just keep it to 0 for now. Then reconstruction options. Once you have constructed something and warped a little bit, you can just say here, restore all or reconstruct. I'll show you guys an example in a minute. Then again, a few mask options, mask all, mask none, invert, and so far, very self-explanatory. And then also at the bottom, a few more view options. Do you want to show a mesh? If you want to have a mesh on top there, you want to show guidelines, etc. Very simple actually. And show mask here in a red tone, yellow, green, whatever you have. I'm going to just keep it to red. And show the backdrop. No, just keep that off for now. All right, so these are just a few options. Let's actually start talking about the options. So I'm going to go over to the tool, which is just the normal warp tool. I'll also zoom in a bit closer so you guys can see it a bit better. Okay, let's move the hand tool up. I'm just pressing spacebar on the keyboard. And now right away, I will actually make my brush a bit smaller. Sometimes it's handy to have it nice and big and just only work with the edge. Say, for instance, you see the lip now. So I'm just working with the edge and slowly pushing up. So here's another technique as well with the whole liquefying tool. Don't click and hold and drag. It will just break your complete image. Press Command Z, go step back. Rather click and tap and push. So meaning tap, 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 tap. So you're kind of tapping your way through the whole image. The same if you're working with the pen tool. And right away you get to see what this tool does. Again, it's just warping areas. So you can be really creative with this and create really weird pictures. Or in order just to correct certain areas, which we've also showed with the puppet warp. So you can easily again tweak this area and just make the lips look really nice, tweak all the areas in. You can zoom in a bit closer. Once again, I'm just pressing again here on the keyboard with Z. Zoom in a bit closer, hold spacebar. Right, get back to the warp tool. And now again, like I said earlier, click and drag, click and drag, click and drag. Okay, so you're really just fixing these small areas. Great. So say for instance, you overdo it like this, oh, and you can't go a few steps back and you're continuing, then you can simply go over here to the right side and just say restore or reconstruct. And you can say how much, the amount. You want to have just a bit of an amount, or again, you can just say reconstruct all. So you're basically back to the normal settings. I'm going to press Command and 0 again, so the canvas fits again back to my screen, and also show you guys quickly the next tool. So say for instance, we've warped around here, and we've dragged out the cheeks a little bit, and whoa, our picture looks very weird, and we just want a certain area, and don't want to reconstruct everything, or just by percentages, then just use the reconstruct brush over here. Simply select the brush size, and now you can just brush over until you are happy. You want it just to this side. This is good. Then you can just reconstruct it very simply with this tool. Okay, great. Let's actually reconstruct everything and go to Restore All. Select the next tool over here, which is again the smoothing tool. So whenever you have also reconstructed something and it looks too weird, you can always use the smooth tool here to smoothen edges. But to be honest, I have not worked so much with this yet. Restore all, and let's go over to Swill. I'll just show this very simple. You guys can also try this out at home and on your Photoshop. So basically, it's just turning your whole pixels around and creating really weird shapes. Again, also the suction one. Let's actually make it nice and big. So normally I also use the brushes a little bit bigger in order to get better effects. Instead of having it nice and small, then it will just create a very small suction over here, which looks a bit weird. So rather use it with a bigger brush. Again, remember the brush size is over here on the right. So you basically click and hold and it will slowly just create a suction. And there you already saw it now. My computer also lagged a little bit. So sometimes Photoshop crashes at this point. So I'll show you guys the technique around this in a minute. Let's actually go to Restore All. Okay. And let's go to the Bloated tool. And we can also make this nice and big and just blow her head up a little bit. So again, obviously one wouldn't do this for a retouch, but just showing you guys what this tool has to offer. Okay, and you can really create some funky images with this. Let's actually go back and restore once all again. And one more last tune, push to the left. So when you move over with this, it either pushes to the right or again up, pushes to the left. So you can also use this tool in working up and down. Obviously the brush is quite big for this. Pushing up goes left, pushing down goes right. Okay, let's also go Restore All and show you the best tool actually out of this, which is again the Mask tool. So say for instance, we zoom in a bit closer here and you just only want to maybe warp the eyebrows, but the glasses are so close to this. And first of all, select your brush. Make the brush a bit smaller. And right away, first of all, just select everything that should not move. So basically you create with red now a mask on top of this. Pretty much same like the quick selection tool. You also get to see everything in red. Okay, you can be a bit more rough with this. So say for instance, everything from the glasses should not move. Great. You can also use again the eraser mask here. Make it a bit smaller and right away you can erase certain areas again that should be attached. Okay, like so, just obviously showing this roughly. Now press Command 0, fit back to screen. I'll take my Move and Warp tool, make my brush really nice and big. Let's actually zoom in a bit closer again. And I want to only warp the, damn, now I pressed one too much. Let's zoom out again. Okay, and I only warp the eyebrows here. Let's take the warp and I can now warp like this without wondering or without caring about the glasses here. I can just literally warp and you'll see right away it does not attach. Okay, obviously our mask is not that perfect here. That's why the last pixels over here get attached. But you guys get the point of what this mask offers. So again, you can now post this. Okay, say Restore All. Let's go actually with the brush a bit more in, and with the mask, just brush a bit more over this so we're really sure it doesn't attach that. And again, the warp, simply make the warp a little bit smaller. Again, push and click, push and click, push and click, push and click. Great. And right away, Photoshop does that for us. And once we hit OK now, that will be affected and right away also on our layer again. I'm going to press Command 0, get back to the normal mode. So guys, that's pretty much it for the liquifying tool. Very simple to work with these options here on the left hand side with your tools, and on the right to refine this a little bit. And if you don't trust yourself with the advanced mode, then just stick with the normal for now. Great. Well, last technique here, once you hit OK, right away, this effect will be applied only to version 2 layer, so you will not be left with the previous version. So again, here you can see the before and after, before and after. It looks a bit weird, but yeah, obviously it's just an example. Great. So one last technique that I want to show you guys, if your Photoshop constantly crashes when you go to the liquifying tool because your computer is not so quick with the processing and the RAM, here's a simple technique that I use. So first of all, what I do is go back to image, go back to my image size, turn this down to 72 dpi. So this is basically going now into web saving mode, which is not really the right method to do this. More about this also later in the need to know section under saving for web. I'm going to hit OK. Right away, my image will be rasterized down in pixel size, and it's very small now. You guys can see now, let's actually go a step back again. You can see over here, let's have a look. Now this whole canvas and whole file is around 70 megabytes. If I do this step with resizing it down, it's only 8 megabytes. So Photoshop has a bit, it's a bit easier for Photoshop to actually render it quicker now in the liquifying tool. So what you do is go back to filter, go back to the liquifying tool, and now obviously the picture is a bit smaller. Now you can go back in and easily with Photoshop tweak your areas. So say for instance we want to do the glasses really weird, right? Let me just do this, okay, just as a test and an example. Okay, so I'm happy with what I did. Now what I still will do is, again, let's just make this a bit nicer. Okay, now what I will do is go to save mesh. So right away I'll go to save, and maybe in my folder here somewhere on the computer I'll say liquify mesh. Yes, save that please Photoshop. Okay, so we hit save. Then we go over to cancel and get out of this stage again, because obviously we want to work on a high quality file and not have a low res file. Then we also go back to our history panel, back to delete layer. Great. So now we are back to our high quality image. You guys can see the detail again. And now what I will do with the, obviously you will duplicate and have the certain layer. Go to filter, liquify once again. And now we don't even work in the liquifying tool because it will crash. So we just go to load mesh, select your mesh, hit open, and right away Photoshop applies the same nesting mesh to the big image because the mesh and the nesting is all the same in the backend. So then I can just hit OK, Photoshop renders that, and da-da, right away you have the same effect on your high quality image. So again, if your Photoshop crashes, don't forget there's the option here of rendering it down to 272 dpi, changing it with the liquify, save, and bring it back into Photoshop. Great, that was all about the liquifying tool.